Hi, everyone. Welcome to the RPC community call. We'll get started in a few minutes. We'll let people join. Please add your name to the notes and share video if you feel comfortable doing so. Please note that the video will be uploaded to YouTube in a couple of days. Has anyone had any issues with joining the meeting? Just received a report that somebody was having difficulty calling in.
I'm having problems entering a name in the notes, but other than that, no problems.
Sorry, John, your audio broke up there.
Sorry, I said I'm having problems entering names in the notes, but other than that, no problems.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, I think the join rate has slowed down, so let's go ahead and get started. As I mentioned, this video will be uploaded to YouTube in a couple of days. Please feel free to share video if you're comfortable doing that. And please join in. We'll use the queue if necessary, but if you have comments, feel free to raise them. Like to thank Alice for taking notes for this session, and also Madison for keeping an eye out on the chat room, so she can like bring comments to my attention. Sometimes I get wrapped up and I don't see the comments as they go by. Right. So there's a link to the agenda in the chat. Add your name to the notes. Is there any other business, any changes to the agenda, bashes? All right. So not hearing any, I'll go ahead and jump into project updates, starting with our intake form. So our intake form is a short questionnaire that we send to authors when a document enters the queue, asking for some style guidance, if there were any contentious sections, anything we should know. We are receiving responses from authors within 4 days on average, with more than half of them sending their response in within a day. The responses have generally been good, although we are going to fine-tune some of the questions, and later Sarah, who is the editor who sends out the forms and processes the information, will share some good examples of feedback we have received. Any question? Also wanted to say that we are now CCing the Auth48 archive mailing list on these threads. So now the Auth48 mail archive has expanded a bit beyond Auth48 threads, but we felt that this was a good way to capture the threads. And so that list is open for people to peruse the archives. Any comments or questions? All right, moving on. So supporting Cramdown RFC as a submission format. Starting September 1st, the RPC has started accepting Cramdown RFC files as a source file, and we will be editing those and making those files available upon the start of Auth48. This is we're doing this in a limited fashion. Our plan is to accept 5 documents a month, and we ask if authors want to participate with the intake form. So right now we have 9 documents in the queue that are in Cramdown RFC, and we will be editing those in Cramdown and providing those files in Auth48. Auth48 then becomes a 2-step approval process where authors review and approve content changes in the Markdown file. And when those approvals are in, we then convert it to RFC XML and have the authors review the XML and the outputs. So the 2-step process. Richard.
So first of all, thanks for all the work on this. I'm super excited to see better support for the cram down format. That was my major pain point in my last few Auth48s. So super excited to see that happening. I'm just curious what the thinking is behind the restriction to a few documents per month.
We are fine-tuning our editing processes around it, and this is a minimum. And if we feel comfortable, we will turn up the spigot. So as I mentioned, we've got 9 in the queue right now. We have stopped accepting for the month of September, but October 1st, we'll start asking authors again if they would like their Markdown documents to be edited. So as we feel more comfortable, we'll take on more documents, but we wanted to start with 5. We already have 9. People have been enthusiastic. Any questions about the this process with Markdown files? Oh, sorry, Richard in the queue again.
Yeah.
Paul.
Quick question. So in the in notes directory, there are some markdown in notes /authors. Will the final markdown be moved into the in notes directory long term when the RFC is published, or will it disappear?
We plan to keep the final Markdown file available as like what we do with our what we call the not prepped XML. So we make that available to authors if they want to do a BIS document, so they're not dealing with say the additional attributes added by the prep tool. And so yes, we would make that file available. It's not going to, I don't think we're going to be serving it up, say, on RFC editor with like a link on the info page yet, but it will be accessible, and authors can ask us for a copy if they can't find it. Jay.
Yeah, can I just ask, is there anybody who disagrees with that about Markdown files, who would want to see them publicly made public on the on the RFC editor site, or are they comfortable that these are only ever like a working format that is therefore only provided to people who need it rather than published?
Well, I don't understand why they would not be just published. I mean, for published, the value of showing them on the site, like, how is that not, like, that's free, right?
So I disagree that it's free, in the same thing as Gene was saying, that there is the pre-finishing XML and then the finished XML. So when you look in the RFC editor thing, you only see the finished XML, not the pre-finished XML. So we could publish them, but we would have to somehow mark them as these are not, these are not the final thing. These are a thing that went to it. And that takes some overhead of explaining. I would be happy if we did it, but I wouldn't be happy if we put them out there with sort of an indication that they have the equivalent status of the XML and the PDF and the text.
No, I agree they shouldn't be seen to have the equivalent status, but I just think the default ought to be open. And so I don't understand, like, every time someone says, should I be secret? I'm like, why? And so, like it seems to me like you put them in some side directory, anyone can find them. Like, what's the problem here?
Okay. Yeah. Yes. They would be in a public directory. It was just thinking about right now, the current info page. We would have to build like a link saying, oh, and if you wanted to edit the Markdown file, here it is. And we could do this. So what I'm hearing. Sorry?
I don't really care if there's a link. I mean, like,
okay.
I think these are just like, I just think these are like, as Paul says, these are like interim assets, but it's just like why should they not be on the internet?
So I think that actually a way around this potentially would be for them to be available on Data Tracker, not available on the RFC editor website, because they are they're for authors, aren't they? They're a specific thing that an author might choose to pick up and turn into a new version of something. They're not like a published thing that we want a consumer of an RFC to be able to use. So that seems to me a more logical place to put them available there.
Okay. John?
Yeah, I agree with Jay's last suggestion, and as somebody who's very queasy about this, I don't think we can know how it's going to work until we try it, and I think not trying it would probably be a mistake under circumstances. I just hope that if it turns out that something goes wrong, that we can adapt quickly. But I don't see any objection to going ahead.
All right. Richard?
Yeah, that's a good point that John raises, that like if we keep it, we can always delete it later if there's some reason not to have it. But if we delete it, we can't go the other way. So I think in practice, this is probably not going to be an issue, because I think most of the people using Markdown are probably also using Git, and we'll take whatever the final thing is and log it in their repository. But it seems like throwing this data away is not helpful. It's small data. There's a low risk of confusion, so let's definitely keep it somewhere. I have no opinion whether it's in the RPC database or in the data tracker.
Yeah, and we were not planning to throw it away. So, and what I'm hearing now is, yes, there is interest in being able to access these files, and we'll take a look at where it needs to be hosted. Data Tracker sounds like perhaps a good place for that. So, Paul?
It doesn't have to be Data Tracker, in that you already have a directory under EndNotes called pre-release, where you have all of the ones that we talked about before, the XML that was before the pre-release. So you can just drop them in there. And just to be clear, since it doesn't seem like Richard knew that, they don't throw anything away. There's years worth of pre-release XML there. So why not put the pre-release Markdown there as well?
Well, and also something to consider for the new website also. So we are looking at our directory structures on that website. And so that, yes, we'll be taking a look at it. Richard? Yep. All right. So any other comments or questions on Markdown? All right, moving on. GitHub roadmap, the use of Git and GitHub by the RPC initially first for version control, and then for making the repos available for authors as an optional Auth 48 review tool. So we met last week to discuss the roadmap, got a lot of good feedback. We talked about the visibility of the repos. The current plan is to have a new repo per document as it enters the queue. It was discussed that these repos should be public as soon as they are created. I've taken a look at this. My exploration of this, if a repo is public, then people can comment and create pull requests and create issues and comment on issues and create pull requests. I see that there is a way to set a public repo to be limited to collaborators only, but this is actually a moderation setting. So, we're taking a look at this. We had, there were concerns about having people just interacting with the repos like before an editor got to it or while editors were working on it. So taking a look at what it means to have it public, but maybe more controlled access. Eric?
I mean, it's true there's a moderation setting, but the moderation setting does exactly what you think you'd want, which is it turns off pull requests and comments and issue creation for people who are not collaborators. So I guess I don't really care what the feature's called.
Okay. So, one of the interesting things about it, though, it is not a big deal, but I found it interesting that the setting is actually time-based. So you could set it for like 1 day or 6 months. It's not just an on and off switch. Eric?
Yeah, but the point stands. Like you can do, like GitHub can do what you want it to do. It's like you can have a public repo and not have people interacting with it. So I'm not sure what the concern is.
Okay. My initial concern was that the label moderation is, people might see that and go, why is it being moderated? But it doesn't, with my testing, I see it doesn't do that. It just says, this has just been limited to collaborators. So I wasn't seeing, my initial concerns were allayed there. The other thing we had discussed was also kind of the size and shape of the pull requests. And it was great to get clarification on the difference between what authors consider the difference between formatting versus content, because we as editors have consider things like adding, bullet lists or changing definition lists into bullet lists or vice versa, formatting. But the conversation we had last week, participants were fairly clear that any changes that you make in the source file would be considered content, and that in particular in Markdown, and then when we convert it to RFC XML, that's all considered format. So that makes constructing the pull requests a lot easier. So appreciated the feedback on that. Oh, there was also, I think, a question at the end. Well, why aren't we using GitHub right now? So if we were to do, and we will be training in GitHub, but we won't be rolling out to a production format until we get our tool support. Right now, if we were to use GitHub now, we would still need quite a bit of tool support to make it go more quickly for us. And that would be temporary fixes and temporary processes that would then be thrown out in 5 or 6 months. So we are waiting for our tools support. We will be updating the roadmap by the end of the month. Richard.
So yeah, I would be interested to hear what sort of tool support you think is necessary for this beyond like a Git client and text editor to edit Markdown.
So right now, our review and publishing scripts assume a certain file system structure. And if we were to say use easier tools, more user-friendly tools to interact with GitHub, we would have to be pulling the documents off the server that we edit them on and then shoving them back. And so there are complications. Our system is old, and we've got a lot of infrastructure that we have built around it, and it would need to be updated. And we might as well just wait for the tools that will automate our repo creation, make it far more easier to interact with GitHub in a more modern way. So, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I feel like maybe there are two different questions. One question is about the interaction with the authors, and one is about the interaction internally. As I sort of mentioned last time, I actually don't care what process is used internally, but I do care about the interaction with the authors. And as far as the authors are concerned, like I mean, I've already done this a number of times, and all it needs is like someone sends a repo, you do pull requests, and you make all your changes in whatever your internal format is, and then you do a pull request against that repo. So I guess I guess I'm a little surprised that seems like there's a lot of overhead there, since I've in this process a number of times when I just did all the pieces that I'm asking you to do, whereas I took your things and I made pull requests out of them, and I didn't have to spend 3 days writing tools, let alone 6 months writing tools. So I'm sort of a little surprised to hear that that a lot of tooling needs to be required here. So I'd like to also have some elaboration.
Right. So for us, it's trying to maintain consistency in processes also. So, and building that out for the long term.
Well, I think that has some value, but on the other hand, I think that this is something people have been asking for a very long time, and sort of hear that for in the interest of consistency in process, it's going to take another year. That seems like a really long time to wait for that. So given as I said, that I've done this a number of times, and really processing the pull request is a matter of taking 5 minutes of copying the thing over and doing a PR. I'm just really quite surprised to hear this requires extensive tooling.
Robert?
So Eric, and you're looking at it only from the perspective of the interaction with the author inside GitHub, and not from the taking the results, getting the results into GitHub, taking the results back out, and eventually getting to a published RFC. We're rewriting the publication process. We're taking the process that they've got right now, which is everybody's working in one great big common directory, and they've got scripts that they run on that common directory to take things through the publication process. That right now, there are interaction points with the authors scattered throughout. To move to having that interaction with the author happen during those scattered points through that process will, while it is possible, require a lot of hand-holding to get things out of the current process and back into the current process without corruption. We're building it into the thing that we're replacing the current process with.
Okay, but you're asking everybody who wants to use GitHub to wear that piece of it in the meantime, rather than you wearing it. Because I've already been through this back and forth, and it's really simple. Someone sends me an email, I copy the thing in directory, I do a PR, I make changes, I send you the file back. I'm asking you to do that instead of me. I don't understand why that is I just really understand why that is so difficult.
Yeah, I think Ecker's point is that this, like the contributor interface, the author interface is where where the community needs the GitHub stuff. And that is entirely separable from all of the RPC's management stuff, as evidenced by the fact that when you do Auth 48 today, you rip an XML file out of your system and you email it. What Echo's pointing out is that instead of emailing it to someone, you drop it in a PR. And instead of taking things back in email, you do the pull request, you agree on what the final document is, and you take it that way. So the interface to whatever your tooling is inside the RPC is the same. We just want to replace all the email back and forth nonsense with PR. And that is simple. I like simple to the degree that like I already wrote I had Gemini write the instructions and sent them to Jay after the call last week. Like, so like this could be operationalized pretty much instantaneously. I mean, does that separation, does that boundary, do folks disagree that there's that boundary there?
Yes, I
Yes,
disagree.
I absolutely disagree.
How does
Absolutely.
that? I mean,
Because
but how does
they
that
have
make
a
sense
set
in,
of
like-
tools that generate those emails now. Are you writing all the scripts for them to generate the emails that will then plunk it into GitHub and vice versa?
I have already written, in fact, the instructions for taking
Not
whatever thing you
instructions,
email.
the scripts that interact with their system.
No, like I think
There's
to get something
I
out the door
think
here.
I think you guys are full of it. I mean, this is work for them to integrate into their processes and saying, well, it's going to magically appear in GitHub. They'll get an email that looks like a PR rather than the
Yeah,
email that they get
so-
now is not workable as just magic make it happen. I
So-
completely agree with this is going to take some time. I also am not clear that this call is for the purpose of the community managing the RPC's timeline.
Well, when is the
Well,
call? When is the purpose of that then? When is the call for that?
because I was told on last week's call that this was the call in which we discussed time.
Discussing how
like-
it's going to happen, but we're not, I believe. I mean, you want to send Jay email and say the timeline's too long.
Yes, and Jay asked us
you-
to bring us this call. Which is why we're here.
I did say have the discussion here. It's better to have it in public. But I agree with you that
So
we have to be clear about what's micromanagement and what isn't micromanagement. But yes, this is where we need to have the conversation.
This
about
sounds to my point in raising my hand was this sounds like micromanagement to me.
So-
However much time it is going to take for the RPC to get their processes in place, and I can, imagine that it will be shorter than a year. But however much time it takes for those processes to make sense so that they can easily get things to and from users of GitHub, this sounds like micromanagement to me.
So if your thesis is if it was 20 years, then we wouldn't have an objection. I don't understand
No.
your dividing line.
No, I'm saying
It's been 7,
it is-
Pete. It's been 7. We've been asking for this. So
It has not, sorry. For yes, we have received requests for using GitHub for Auth 48, but the actual work towards doing that did not start 7 years ago.
sure, I agree with that,
and-
but that I'm not happy about that. Not happy.
Well, I know.
So let me try and reframe this in a little bit more productive fashion. I think what Ecker and I are saying is that the scope of this thing that's been proposed is broader than what is necessary to address the community's needs, and that a smaller thing could be shipped faster and still be consistent with what you've articulated as the long-term vision. So I think what I was outlining is basically a small bolt-on to the current process, which would get a lot of which would solve a lot of the needs that the community's expressed and the community's been waiting on for a long time. It would be a slightly manual addendum, and then the work of the RPC over this longer time frame, whatever that longer time frame is, would be to remove the manual steps and remove the little bit of additional work. So what I'm saying is, like, let's do a small thing that addresses the problem, the immediate pain, at the cost of a little additional work, and then the longer thing can fit it into the, develop all the beautiful smooth integrations so that you don't have to do any manual work.
Richard, would you, I think you have been communicating directly with Jay. If you would send that information, your write-up to RFC Interest, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I could do it, but just for the benefit of folks here, basically what it says is like what I just outlined. Take the thing that you would email, or the XML or Markdown file. Thanks for that. That you would email in Auth 48. Let those scripts run like maybe the authors get the email and it still has stuff in it. But take that thing, drop it in a repo, edit it however you. Well, yeah, and as Echo was saying, like, make a pull request. But I'm happy to send the notes I was exchanging with the RFC Interest.
So
thanks.
Perhaps taking a step back here, like, I hear the objection that this is perhaps not the forum for this, but on the other hand, like, I also feel like I've requested this a number of times and bounced back and put him to a forum. So I'd like to understand, like, what the forum is for actually having a discussion about the timeline here, and what the mechanism is.
You can discuss it here. Look, this is the place to discuss the prioritization of the RPC work. Okay, definitely the place to discuss it. I think what Pete was saying was something quite different, about saying that the depth of the management that's trying to take place here was too much. That's different from whether or not. But this is the right forum to discuss it. Please.
Well, I'm not particularly interested in details, other than the reason we're having a detailed discussion is because at the last meeting we said we said this seems really long, and people started giving us reasons why it was so long. And so now we're trying to debug why it's so long in order to reduce that number. Like, if someone tells me it'll be 3 months, I'll just shut up. But when someone tells, I have managed extensive software projects with like lots of manual automated processes, and so I know how long things take, and I know what it involved stripping Firefox, and this is like a lot simpler than stripping Firefox. And so when someone tells me it's a year, I think I'm entitled to an opinion that maybe this is really long. And so I'm only interested in the details to the extent to which this seems too long. And so that's the discussion we have. If you're talking about discussion out of scope, then okay, then I don't understand what we're doing here.
Yeah, sorry, I'd like to go back to the queue here. Paul is next.
So I'd like to respond to two things that Ecker and Richard have said. This discussion is not only for prioritizing this one work item, it is for prioritizing the RPC's work in general. And when you say that this is a need of the community, it's not a need. Obviously, it's not a need because it's not being met. It has never been met so far, and we're doing just fine. It adds a bit of work for some documents, but in fact, I would be surprised if more than 10% of the RFCs coming out feel that this is a need at all. So it's something we want. It's certainly something I want. I don't consider it as high as a priority as making the RPC's processes consistent within themselves, so that when something breaks, which it does in any given process, as certainly as Ecker knows, you can point and say, oh, we made this decision and it was this priority. I don't consider this as high a priority as many other things.
Thanks, Jay.
So I think it would be useful for Richard for you to send your proposal, through to RFC interest list or some of us to discuss this and understand this more. And I think that if necessary, some more explanation is going to be needed from then the RPC about why that potentially won't work, because we've heard already, Jean point out the directory structure, the fact that the scripts expect a particular directory structure and all of these kind of things. So I'm just making sure, Richard, that you're going to address those things within that, so that we get that. Okay. I'm internally hopeful that there is a potential solution for something that keeps everybody happy. So I would like to see, us discuss that to see whether that goes forward. Very happy to see that happen.
Robert?
You're on mute, Robert.
Is this better? All right, there was a lot of discussion on the call last week about what the workflow inside the GitHub repository should be in the long run. The discussion about what commits should contain, what PR should contain, went down to the level of branching and whatnot. I'm wondering if the request for the quick version of the repo that would of a GitHub interaction, sorry, not the repo, of working with GitHub that was a direct replacement for Auth48 is expected to have those things in it, or if it is essentially a repo that has a PR with only one commit in it, that the authors use the GitHub tooling to respond to that PR with one commit instead of sending email back as a temporary advancement before we get to the point where we're doing the nicer things where you have, well, the things that we discussed last week for the actual content of the repo.
So as I said on the call last week, I don't care about commits. The number of commits is not, it doesn't matter. It's the number of PRs and the scope of the PRs that will end up having user interface problems.
So is it sufficient, Richard, just to make sure that my question's coming across, would it be sufficient for that interaction for the number of PRs to basically be one at the beginning, and each iteration on it would be no, that PR is not right, didn't bring us the right rock, bring us another rock?
Yeah, well, I think that's pretty much what I'm imagining. And those we could debate whether we want to enable authors to propose PRs or whether we want all the PRs to originate from the RPC, but I think, yeah, broadly speaking, the process would be, initiate Auth48 with a PR that goes from source doc to edited doc, where what happened in the middle to produce that edited doc is whatever our RPC black magic happens today. And that's the starting point for Auth48. If it goes well, you merge the PR and Auth48 is done. You take the updated document, import it back into whatever black magic tools the RPC has, and off you go. Like that's the kind of happy path version. Maybe there's more PRs. But I think to the kind of the initial point that Ecker made, like the idea here is to basically use GitHub as the author interface and isolate that from any changes, any RPC process integrations, at least at the start. If we want to make more integrations later, fantastic, but bridge that over with a little bit of 3 lines of Git commands in the interim.
All right, so if I could, while this is still fresh, forgive me, I realize there's a queue and I'll get out of the way, but there are things that the RPC currently does, even past Auth48, which I realize is something that some people find objectionable, that will change the content of the document. So a spelling error might have been found very late in the process, or a reference format may need to have changed. Right? There are some things that will happen post Auth48 currently with scripts that run that will change things that would not have shown up in that PR.
I mean,
I mean, I think that's problematic, but I don't think that's a problem we need to solve right now. Like, I think if we logically think of the thing you export at the beginning of Auth48 as the thing you make the PR with, and then the thing after the PR is merged as the thing you get back in email from the authors. Like that's a good enough process integration for me to get started.
Yeah, I think I guess I would say several things. I think if all this thing covered was the thing we've been talking about for like quite a while now about this markdown back and forth, that would like be entirely satisfactory for I think everybody using markdown, and then we could use whatever we could live with whatever interface we had for like verifying the final XML was not borked. Like because like I don't think we're like I don't think there's any interest in iterating on XML. As Richard says, I think if there are spelling errors being corrected in post auth 48, that's actually problematic because there shouldn't be any content changes being made post auth 48 without author sign off. But that doesn't really affect this discussion. You know, there's a little bit of sort of like how many commits is it? I do not care how many commits it is, but what I do care about is that the revised version is iterated on in the same PR. Because otherwise you run into problems where because what you want to do is verify that, because like the way this actually works, right, is like there's a PR and then there's things that are wrong with it, and those things get changed and they have to be revised, and at the end of the day you want to be able to compare, make sure everything got changed. So that has to be a one linear set of things, but the way you do that is you just copy over the text from the old thing to the new thing. Which like I say, like I can like walk people through what I already do when I do this. It's like very like literally it's just copying. But I think what shouldn't happen is like someone sends comments is like, so I think Richard's right. The RPC does whatever it does and sends whatever magic thing it has, and then we take it as the first input. But the next thing has to be stomped over that. It can't just be a completely fresh PR or like things don't work. But again, I don't care how many commits are in that PR either. I just care like I can compare like the state before my comments and state afterward. It can be like, because I assume what's going to happen here is you're like the same way as we send you old new. Now we're going to send comments and it's going to say, please change this thing, or we're going to say, please take this change. And so like then we got to actually like look at those.
So I'll be quick. I just wanted to acknowledge that this has taken a very long time. We do understand that. It took a long time to analyze the tools that the RPC had, took a long time to put into place the resources and things to do the heavy lifting to replace all of the RPC tools, and the GitHub as an interim step wasn't considered as part of that process. And then we lost a year because of the severe problems we had with our infrastructure and things. So we're approximately a year behind schedule on delivering this. So I do understand this is frustrating and taken some time, and just can assure everybody that you know, we will try to be as flexible as possible, but there are significant resources now dedicated towards this. This is the RPC tools modernization is the highest priority of our developers currently, and we have a hard deadline of RFC 10K that we have to meet on this.
Very quickly, the last point that I wanted to add was just one of contextualization. I do think that our future of developing RFCs in drafts, period, is going to use GitHub, at least for the period where GitHub is as rich of an environment as it is right now. And we should focus on that as a target. But our community is not even close to the majority of we really want to have this GitHub stuff yet. I think we'll get there. But while we're pushing on priority, Gene, what was the numbers you've told me from the surveys?
For 2024, the post-publication surveys, 43% of authors said they liked the current process. 13% asked for GitHub, and the rest had other suggestions.
So, you know, I do think it's a priority, but I think we've got a yeah, never mind. Let it go. Let that stand as it is. Thanks.
And I want to thank everybody for the discussion. And as I was seeing in the chat, and people are getting a better idea of what Richard and Ecker are asking for. And I would love to see the write-up. I think my perception of what was being asked has changed. So I do want to take a look again at your proposal, Richard. So please send to the list. So time check, we have 15 minutes. We have, I guess, just very quickly on other project updates. So documents that are coming out of the RSWG will shift responsibility, say, for the RFC XML vocabulary to the RPC. And I just wanted to let people know that we are starting to take a look at open issues with the vocabulary, looking at priorities, grouping them, and we will be taking this to the RFC interest mailing list to solicit input on this. John?
Jean, for those of us who are concerned about RFC to XML as an authoring language, independent of its use as a production and final document language, is that part of this discussion or part of the RFC or part of the RSAV discussion, or does it fall somewhere in between?
This is more looking at things that have been left languaging because the tools team couldn't make any updates while RSWG was talking about a path forward and managing the RFC XML vocabulary. So small steps there to begin with, and looking at current open issues, things like normalization of block elements, accessibility, being able to support accessibility better, bug fixes at the moment.
Well, my specific interest and concern at this point is in features of the vocabulary and their implementation, which are useful only to authoring and discussion within working groups, and do not typically affect the final production form of the document.
Right. So there is an issue tracker for RFC, XML to RFC. Are your ideas captured there?
They are captured, but they've just been dismissed, as far as I can tell, precisely because they do not affect your final working version of the language, and that's the reason for the question.
No. All right. Yeah, I'll take a look on that. I also want to say that we are also going to be working on revised guidance for SVG artwork.
Sorry,
again,
Jean.
yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Can I just come back to John, please, on the RFC
Okay,
XML?
yes.
Yeah. So, John, I think that's a good point. There are, there are two separate modes in which this RFC XML is used, and the potential changes can affect either of them. And I think it does come down to what those changes are, as to which, so they need to be looked at and analysed. As one of the people that has dismissed some of your suggestions previously, I would say that's because I felt that they broke XML. They weren't, correct XML usage of things, but not because of the way that you wanted them to work. But I'm certainly happy to go back and have a look and discuss those things more. I'm not averse, and I don't think anybody else is averse to RFC XML being developed to increase author support rather than just publication support. It's just the specific things that were the problem, I think, for me.
So that we don't take up any more time today on this, let me drop you a note. Let me drop you and Jean a note about what I consider the key core issues there, or the core outstanding issues. And we can proceed from there in whatever form it's just, we'll discuss it.
All right, thank you. Okay, so really quickly on the tooling side, of course, the tools team is working on a new queue management system for us. In addition, a new external website and also new editing tools. So we have notes there at our notes page. And I'd like to jump now, see if we can quickly go through editor work updates. Alice.
Can you hear me? I have a couple documents for RFC editor check and one in Auth 48 that's an IETF document that I edited and I published for RFCs during the past month, as well as worked on some of the things that Jean mentioned earlier.
Thanks. Lynn?
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? I think I see nodding. Okay, so I'm working on cluster 541, which is 4 documents. Finished with one, currently editing a second one, 2 more to be edited after that, which are pretty short, so it shouldn't take too much longer. 1 document ready for review, and one in Auth 48 done that's been prepped for pub, and then one that was published last week. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. Alana?
Hi, so I have 1 document that I'm working on for edit, and then I have 7 total in Auth 40 right now. 3 from C530. One of those is actually already in Auth 40 done, just waiting for author approval from the rest of those docs. And then a few from C405 and then another document. I've also completed RE checks on 3 of those docs there. And that's it.
Thank you. Madison?
Hi, everybody. I currently have 3 that I'm working on in edit. One of them I'm actively working on in edit. It's about a 111-page document that I'm a little over halfway finished. And then I will soon be working on one of the first Markdown experiments. I'm very excited to take a stab at that. I got a couple in Auth 48, been managing errata as needed. And then in the past month, I moved 1 document into RFC editor state, which is now RFCDB 9838, which is an Auth 48 now. And then I also pasted in some errata stats from the month of August for those of you who are curious. And that's it for me.
Thanks. Sarah?
Hi. Currently I'm waiting on authors or ADs on a couple documents for the intake form. And I have a couple pending AD approvals or new versions of drafts that are on the way. For Auth 48, I am working on 2, and then 1 I moved to Auth 48 done recently. I have a list here that I'm pre-editing and formatting in XML, and then those that I'm pre-editing in Markdown. I just sent 2 intake emails. Moved a draft from edit to RFC editor, completed Auth 48 and passed along 9856. I've added 18 drafts to the queue, now 20. Sent 24 intake forms, processed 18, pre-edited and formatted somewhere around 34 drafts in the last month. And then I wanted to shout out a couple quotes from some intake forms that have been super helpful. For 1 draft, the notes were that all source code should be labeled pseudocode. So I was able to do that straight away. And then we got some information on another draft about what order they should be in the cluster. And let's see, this last one pointed to what terminology should be referenced. So I made a note of that for the PE to use that as the first source. And that's it for me.
Thanks. Rebecca? You have Rebecca online?
I think she said she was having some audio issues. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's see. And Megan is out. So, Kaylin.
Hi, everyone. I'm currently working on 3 documents in edit. One of those I should be wrapping up soon. 3 documents in Auth 48. 2 of those are for cluster 542. Completed 2 documents for edit and 1 document for Auth 48 that is now published. And that's all for me.
Thanks. Ted?
Hi, everybody. I have the current listed drafts in reference review. There are a few others in the queue right now, but these are the ones that I have on hand and am currently working through. In the last month, I've completed 12 reference reviews, which is a little lower than my normal monthly quota, mostly because I had about like 2 or 3 really long BIS documents, that is updates, obsoletes documents that were updating RFCs that had errata, but it wasn't clear if the errata had been redressed. These were specifically were hold for document update errata reports. So I worked through that, but we have now added an errata related question to the intake form that should hopefully address that going forward. I've done some other reference work. I had reached out to the Web Hypertext Application Technology Working Group, or WEG, about their living standards. Is kind of a unique reference that we received that updates sort of, there is never one, never a version we can really point to, and asked them about a template that we developed and received a positive response. They seemed okay with it. It provides a commit snapshot of the living standard as it existed when the document was published, as well as a link to the most current version. Other than that, working through Cramdown RFC reference review procedures, I have only done about 2 of those documents right now, and they're very, very simple, probably like less than 10 pages. So I have more coming through the queue now, as well as I'm researching subseries references and citations related to, I think, the mailing list discussion that we'd had with Paul Hoffman. And I think Karsten was also in that mailing list discussion. Yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah. Paul, you have your hand up?
Yeah, just briefly for Ted. I know I am holding the pen on your last question. I want to write up a complete description of sort of where we've been and a proposed solution before I come back. It might take a few days, but I haven't abandoned you on that one.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you. Sandy?
I don't really have anything out of the ordinary, except I have 1 document in edit that is really IANA heavy. It's adding a column to at least 14 registries. And so I want to play a little bit with trying to create some diffs against the IANA registries, but it'll take some editing of the copies of their registries to get it to show the right thing. And then everything else is pretty normal.
Thanks. Karen?
Everyone. I'm currently working on 2 documents for RFC checks. I have 1 document in Auth 48 from C537, and I've completed RFC editor checks on 3 documents and sent those to Auth 48, and also completed Auth 48 for RFC 9843, which has now been published. And that's it for me.
Thanks. Hey, Rebecca.
Hi, sorry, I've been having audio issues the entire hour, so I'm hoping it will stay good. I'm currently working on 2 for our RFC editor check, and since the last meeting, I've completed both edit and RFC editor check for 1 document, RFC editor check for 2 documents, and passed along 3 documents for publication. That's it for me.
All right, thank you. All right, 1 minute left. We have links to our stats under the FYIs. Any other comments or questions before we close? Oh, all right. And I see Richard just put a note in the chat that he sent email to RFC Interest. So awesome. All right, everyone, thank you for your time. We will catch up next month.
Thank you for hosting,
everybody.
Jean. Thank you.
Thanks, Jean.
Thank you, Jean.